Will on his son. You kiss my son. Daddy, you can't do that no more. Because the little boy was pushing his face like, Daddy, I don't want to kiss you and stuff. He been doing that for so long. You can look at all of everything that boy growing up.
It's bad. No, it's bad. It's bad.
Yeah, because all you did was whisk them into it. They whisked them kids.
Kiss my son.
Will Smith grabbed his son's face and kissed him on the mouth on camera. Jaden didn't lean in, and the internet never forgot that moment. Clips of it still circulate years later, often followed by the same question: what exactly was going on inside that household? Over time, Jaden has spoken about growing up in the Smith family, not through explosive headlines or flashy press tours, but through small moments, old interviews resurfacing, and comments people keep revisiting. On their own, those pieces might not seem like much, but when people started putting them together, the conversation began pointing back to one man, his father, a figure the public trusted for nearly 40 years. Let's get into it. The friend who knew too much. This part of the story doesn't actually begin with Jaden, and it doesn't start with Jada either. Instead, it begins with a man named Bilal Salala, better known online as Brother Bilal. He says he was Will Smith's best friend for almost 40 years. Not just a casual acquaintance or an old co-worker either. According to Bilal, he was deep inside Will's inner circle from the early Philadelphia days all the way to the bright lights of Hollywood. He even appeared in Will's 2021 memoir, and his photo shows up in the book. Bilal says he worked on projects with Will behind the scenes and stayed close during major moments in his career. By his own description, he was someone who knew the family well and had been present through many parts of Will's rise to fame. But according to him, that long friendship eventually collapsed. Around 2021, Bilal says the Smith asked him to sign a non-disclosure agreement. He refused, and that's when things reportedly started to turn messy. But we'll get to that part in a moment. What really matters here is what Bilal began saying after that friendship completely fell apart. Once that NDA situation ended, the interview door suddenly opened wide.
I'm Jaden Smith. I hate my father. People think they know me. They see the clothes, the tweets, the famous parents, and they think it's all a performance. But this has always been me confused, curious, searching. I've been called pretentious, weird, fake deep. But when I spoke about energy and the universe, it wasn't to sound smart. I was just trying to make sense of a world that never made sense to me. After Earth flopped, people said I only got the role because of my dad. Maybe they were right. I love him. But sometimes, I hate him too.
In November 2023, Bilal sat down with Tasha K on her show Unwind with Tasha K, and he made a series of allegations about Will Smith's private life. One of the claims that spread the fastest online involved actor Dwayne Martin. Bilal alleged that he once walked into Dwayne's dressing room at a studio and saw the two men in what he described as a private moment. Bilal said he had keys to the room because he was helping Dwayne Martin with work at the time. He went on to describe what he claims he saw in very graphic detail, and the story exploded online within hours. The clip spread quickly across social media. Soon after, Will Smith's representative responded and called the allegations unequivocally false and completely fabricated. Dwayne Martin also denied the claims through his own representatives, but Jada Pinkett Smith pushed back as well. She later addressed the rumors during an interview on The Breakfast Club, where she dismissed the story and criticized the accusations being circulated online. The moment quickly became another viral clip showing how the Smith family publicly handled the situation. What made the situation feel even more chaotic was that Bilal didn't back down at all. While the Smiths described the claims as extortion, Bilal continued speaking publicly. In December 2023, he appeared on The Art of Dialogue and openly challenged Jada to sue him if what he was saying wasn't true.
Ridiculous, right? And it's none. And this is a person that tried a shakedown, a money shakedown that didn't work.
So there was a money shakedown prior?
Oh yeah, it was a money shakedown.
He tried to extort you before?
No, it's based around this person's idea that they in some way were doing business around Will's book.
Within weeks, he began hinting that he could reveal the names of people he claimed were connected to Jada in certain private gatherings. He suggested that things happening behind closed doors went deeper than what he had already discussed publicly. Bilal also accused her of being involved with multiple celebrities while married to Will. Although he didn't provide specific names, he argued that the legal threats he received followed a pattern he said he had seen for years. And when people asked how Will was handling all the noise, Jada gave what many called the most Will Smith-type response possible. She said they mostly laughed it off. According to her, the whole family even joked about Bilal's description of what he claimed to have seen. Bilal, however, continued pushing back. He argued that Will had misrepresented the real nature of their friendship, even though the memoir and photos showed they had been close for years. According to Bilal, the public version of their relationship didn't match what actually happened behind the scenes. He also accused the Smiths of trying to pressure him into silence, claiming Jada's lawyer sent him a cease and desist letter and even reported him to the Bar Association. Then, on November 7, 2025, Bilal escalated the situation further by filing a lawsuit in Los Angeles Superior Court seeking $3 million from Jada Pinkett Smith. The lawsuit included claims of intentional infliction of emotional distress, defamation, and harassment. Bilal pointed to a 2021 party in Calabasas as a key moment tied to the case. He argued that the legal threats caused serious anxiety, damaged his reputation, and cost him potential work opportunities. According to his filing, the situation left him dealing with public embarrassment and pressure. He also claimed the Smiths had benefited from his loyalty for years before attempting to silence him.
Cast a shadow so big I can't even see myself beneath it. Maybe I'll never live up to him. Maybe I'm not meant to. When I wore a skirt or talked about philosophy, they laughed. But that was me trying to be free, and freedom has never come easy. I broke down. I got sick. I stopped eating. I didn't want to exist in a world that couldn't see me beyond my last name. But I'm still here, still creating, still fighting to be more than someone's son, just me, Jaden.
The Smiths' legal team responded quickly, describing the lawsuit as nothing more than a money grab and an attempt to exploit their name. Jada's filing also pointed out that she had never publicly mentioned Bilal by name. In February 2026, she moved to dismiss the case using California's anti-SLAPP law, calling the accusations false and unsupported. After depositions, including Jada's sworn testimony, a judge dismissed the case on February 16, 2026, stating there was not enough evidence to justify the claims or a permanent restraining order. And when people started comparing that pattern with what Jaden himself has said about growing up in that household, the conversation began to shift, because the son had his own experiences to share, and those moments added another layer to what people were already debating. Some observers began suggesting that Jaden may have seen more than the public ever realized. Around the same time, Bilal made another allegation, claiming he once saw Will grab Alfonso Ribeiro during a Fresh Prince reunion and behave in what he described as an overly physical way. According to Bilal, there were moments where Will allegedly crossed personal boundaries in professional settings with people who might not have felt comfortable pushing back. Those claims quickly started getting discussed alongside the Dwayne Martin story and the wider rumors about Will's behavior behind closed doors. At first, many people dismissed the allegations as the words of a former friend looking for attention. But when internet users began comparing those claims with things Jaden himself had mentioned publicly over the years, the conversation started to feel different. Suddenly, Bilal's accusations weren't being viewed completely in isolation.
Jaden, known for his independent personality and his often bold positions, would have expressed his need to completely detach himself from the influence of his father. Although the exact reasons for this fracture remain unclear, some mention family disagreements or a quest for emancipation on Jaden's part. The artist, who has built a career between music, fashion, and cinema, seems to want to trace his own path far from the shadow of Will Smith.
Then in December 2024, an older interview with Jaden resurfaced online and began circulating again. In the clip, Jaden described a childhood moment that made him uncomfortable. He said his father once pulled his pants down in front of others as a joke meant to embarrass him. On the surface, it sounded like an awkward parenting moment, a dad trying too hard to get a laugh. But in the climate of 2024, with Bilal's allegations about boundaries spreading online, Jada's memoir revealing their separation, and renewed discussion about the family dynamic, the story suddenly landed very differently for many viewers. TikTok creators soon began building entire video series analyzing what they described as the difficult upbringing of the Smith children. Many of those videos framed Jaden and Willow as young people caught in the middle of their parents' complicated choices. The massive engagement on those posts shows how public opinion has started shifting online. But the discussion goes deeper than viral clips and trending posts. It also raises questions about how the household itself was structured. The Smiths openly promoted what they called radical honesty when it came to raising their children. Their idea was that nothing should be hidden from the kids, that they should be treated almost like equals within the family, and that the usual barrier between adult life and childhood should be removed. In 2025, Will even admitted that this approach sometimes backfired. He said giving children the same freedoms and access as adults didn't create the results he originally believed it would. But by that point, critics had already been raising concerns for years. Back in 2013, a Guardian article described a joint interview with Will and Jaden as insane, criticizing Will's intense and philosophical style of parenting. The piece suggested that Will sometimes treated Jaden less like a typical kid and more like an extension of his own ideas and ambitions. Jaden was pushed into acting, music, and constant public attention at a very young age, long before he had much space to figure out who he wanted to be on his own terms. Throughout all of this, Will and Jada framed the criticism in a very different way. They argued that the public simply didn't understand their progressive parenting style. According to them, their children were being raised as independent thinkers who were encouraged to question everything and move through the world freely. But from the outside, some critics felt it looked less like freedom and more like a household where clear boundaries were missing.
That they spent money or what have you, and that they needed to be compensated. So he already tried to do this money shakedown. Will was willing to give him a certain amount or what have you, and he didn't take. Will's always gonna find the funny.
I figured that.
Yeah, he's always gonna find the funny.
To many observers, it seemed like two parents leaning heavily on big ideas and philosophy while overlooking the fact that children sometimes just need structure and guidance. Another layer was added to the conversation when the situation involving August Alsina became public. The story didn't only involve Jada. Jaden's name was also connected to how it began. Alsina wasn't a stranger who suddenly appeared in the Smith family circle. He was first introduced to them through Jaden, who had become friends with him. Over time, that connection eventually led to what Jada later publicly described as an entanglement with August. During an episode of Red Table Talk, Jada confirmed that the relationship happened while she and Will were separated. She described the situation as part of a personal healing process. Will responded by saying there were no secrets between them and that he did not see it as a betrayal. Online rumors later exaggerated the story, including claims that Jada had cheated on Will dozens of times, something both of them publicly denied. But the entanglement story didn't just remain Jada's controversy, it also became part of Jaden's reality. By June 2025, attention around Jaden began growing for different reasons. Reports started circulating online, claiming he had been seen with drug paraphernalia, sparking speculation about a possible habit. Around the same time, Will publicly admitted that he had made what he called very terrible parenting mistakes. On its own, that statement sounded like a celebrity reflecting on the past and trying to grow. But when people looked at it within the wider context, some began interpreting it differently. Critics pointed to the family's radical honesty parenting philosophy, the blurred lines between adult conversations and childhood, and the lack of clear structure that had often been presented as freedom. Those ideas were increasingly being connected by online commentators to Jaden's struggles as a young adult. In October 2024, Jaden posted on X addressing what some people described as his unusual behavior over the years. He told followers he was simply being himself, but the internet quickly folded that message into a larger narrative. Some users argued the post sounded like coded language, suggesting he might have been hinting at experiences he hadn't fully explained, and that his so-called weirdness could be tied to the environment he grew up in.
Jaden Smith cuts ties with his father, Will Smith. An unexpected breakup. Jaden Smith would have recently made a radical decision, banning his father, Will Smith, from coming to his house and no longer considering him as his son. This announcement shocked their fans, as their relationship seemed strong over the years. The father-son duo, who had made their mark in films such as The Pursuit of Happiness and After Earth, seemed to embody the image of a close-knit family. But behind this facade, it seems that deep tensions have finally erupted.
Things escalated again during a November 2025 discussion on X that brought even more attention to the situation. Some users connected the conversation to the backlash from the 2022 Oscar slap and began questioning why certain figures in Hollywood seemed to get a pass when discussing the Smith children, while others were criticized heavily for much smaller comments. Then, in July 2025, a Spanish media outlet published a report claiming that Jaden had made a shocking confession about Will Smith that supposedly left people stunned. The article itself offered very few concrete details. International tabloids are often known for amplifying American celebrity stories with dramatic headlines, and this one spread quickly. Even without strong evidence, the headlines circulated widely across social media and became another piece in the growing online narrative that Jaden might slowly be revealing deeper truths about his father. Comedians soon joined the conversation as well. Posts circulating in early 2026 claimed that Chris Rock and Dave Chappelle had referenced Will Smith in their stand-up routines. Some people online said the jokes went even further than what Rock delivered in his 2023 Netflix special. Whether it was coordinated or simply comedians reacting to the headlines and using the Smith family drama as material, the reaction online was immediate. Speculation about an open marriage added another complicated layer to the story. Back in 2013, Jada said during a HuffPost Live interview that she had always told Will he could do whatever he wanted as long as he could look at himself in the mirror and feel comfortable with his choices. Later, she clarified the comment on Facebook, describing their relationship as a mature partnership built on trust rather than swinging. But that same year, playful photo booth pictures from the set of Focus surfaced, showing Will and Margot Robbie posing closely together. Both actors denied that anything inappropriate happened. Online forums quickly exploded with debate. Reddit threads argued back and forth about whether those photos hinted at an open arrangement or were simply harmless behind-the-scenes moments. Years later, Will spoke with GQ and acknowledged that he and Jada had explored non-monogamy after reaching low points in their marriage. That admission made it clear the rumors were not entirely invented by tabloids. The Smiths themselves had publicly confirmed parts of that reality. Now imagine growing up inside that kind of environment. Jaden didn't have to imagine it because he lived through it. A father whose former best friend later made allegations about blurred physical boundaries. A mother who publicly acknowledged a relationship with someone connected to their family circle. Parents who openly described their marriage as unconventional. Add a parenting philosophy built on radical openness, removing many barriers between adult life and childhood, and a global spotlight that turned nearly every private moment into a public conversation. Then Jada released her memoir, and the story grew even more complicated. This wasn't a light celebrity book filled with gratitude lists or simple reflections. It was a deeply personal account. Jada wrote about her childhood in Baltimore, her rise through Hollywood, her mental health struggles, her complicated marriage, and a relationship that had followed Will Smith since the 1990s. The timing amplified everything. The book arrived on shelves the same month Bilal's allegations were circulating widely online, and the two stories collided and created a massive media storm the Smith family is still navigating today. One of the biggest revelations came early in the book. Jada disclosed that she and Will had actually been separated since 2016, not 2020, not 2022. It was 2016, 7 full years before the memoir was released. According to her, they had stopped living together and stopped functioning like a traditional married couple long before the public had any idea. Jada described the situation as essentially a divorce without the official paperwork. They maintained the public image of unity while privately living separate lives. Will moved into one place while Jada settled nearby, but not with him. They still co-parented, still appeared at events together, and still handled interviews as a team. But behind closed doors, the relationship had already changed, and almost nobody outside their inner circle knew it. Jada also wrote about the 2022 Oscars incident, the night Will Smith walked on stage and struck Chris Rock after the joke about her alopecia. In the memoir, she said she had a strange feeling earlier that something unusual might happen that night. She even considered skipping the ceremony because Chris Rock was scheduled to present. When the moment finally unfolded in front of the entire world, she described it as surreal, almost like watching something unreal happen in real time. But the part that surprised many readers came next. When Will shouted from his seat, Jada said hearing him call her his wife triggered something unexpected inside her. According to Jada, they had not even used the words wife and husband in years because they had been separated so long. Then suddenly, on live television with millions watching, Will referred to her that way again during one of the most intense moments imaginable.
For his part, Will Smith, often seen as a loving and proud father, has not yet reacted publicly to this situation. This breakup reminds us that, behind fame and success, family relationships can be complex and sometimes fragile. A case that does not fail to move and surprise the public, leaving doubts about a possible future rapprochement between Jaden and his father. Are you ready to reject your father for a mistake he made during your childhood?
Jada explained that the moment brought back memories of her younger self, the 16-year-old part of her that still wanted to feel protected. By that point, the slap had already been analyzed from every possible angle, but a memoir added a detail many people hadn't considered. Instead of a typical husband defending his wife, it revealed that a couple who had been privately separated for years were suddenly pulled back into that role in front of the entire world, something Chris Rock later referenced in his own commentary. Here's where the story becomes even more layered. In her memoir, Jada revealed that Tupac once proposed to her while he was incarcerated at Rikers Island in 1995. During a visit, he asked her to marry him. According to Jada, it wasn't exactly about romance in the traditional sense. She said it felt more like a desperate request for stability, someone he trusted who could help keep him focused while he was serving time. Jada says she turned the proposal down. She explained that she told him, "Pac, you ain't have to marry me to do time. I'm here." In the book, she later reflected that she didn't believe the marriage would have lasted anyway. She wrote that once he was free, he might have eventually married and divorced her. Jada also admitted they had kissed once before, but she described their chemistry as feeling more like siblings. Even so, their emotional bond remained strong, and it became something Will always felt in the background of their relationship. In his own 2021 memoir, Will admitted that Tupac's presence in Jada's life weighed heavily on him during the early years of their relationship. He wrote that their connection sometimes tortured his mind. In Will's eyes, Tupac represented everything powerful and fearless. He described him as militant, passionate, and willing to stand up for what he believed in, while Will saw himself as the softer rapper from Philadelphia, standing in the shadow of a larger legend. That's how Tupac's memory existed inside that household. But the story isn't entirely simple. There have always been conflicting versions. Some letters, said to be from Tupac during his time in prison, reportedly denied that he ever proposed to Jada at all. One alleged letter even suggested the opposite, claiming Jada may have been the one who proposed. The authenticity of those letters has long been debated. What is confirmed, however, is that Tupac married Keisha Morris in April 1995 while he was still incarcerated. The marriage didn't last long after Tupac was released. The two eventually divorced not long after he regained his freedom. So whether the proposal to Jada happened exactly as she described, or whether prison loneliness led to emotional decisions with different people, the emotional reality still remains. Tupac clearly held a powerful place in Jada's life, and Will spent years aware of that shadow lingering over their relationship. The memoir also went deeper into Jada's mental health than many readers expected. She revealed that around her 40th birthday, between 2011 and 2012, she struggled with severe depression and suicidal thoughts. She described feeling like she was walking a dangerous emotional edge while dealing with heartbreak, marital problems, and unresolved trauma. Later, she said she was diagnosed with complex PTSD and a dissociative disorder.
Critics quickly began throwing out heavy accusations. Some labeled Jada narcissistic, while others claimed she had humiliated Will publicly and used their marriage as material to promote book sales. Jada pushed back against the backlash, saying simply that life is messy and marriage is messy too. But while the public argued about whether she had shared too much, many people missed what the memoir was really doing. It wasn't just looking back at the past, it was almost mapping out the deeper tensions inside the family story. The book traced several pressure points within that story, from Tupac to the long separation, from the Oscars slap to the mental health struggles that surfaced over the years. It suggested that many of these issues have been quietly hidden while the public saw a polished version of their lives. And those cracks weren't limited to Will and Jada alone. They ran deeper through the structure of a marriage that technically still exists. On paper, that marriage has survived every headline, every rumor, every allegation, and every confession. Yet to many observers, it appears less stable with every passing year. A marriage that somehow refuses to disappear. When you line up everything discussed so far, the accusations about Will's behavior, Jaden's unusual upbringing, and Jada's revelations about their separation, they all circle back to one thing: the relationship between Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith.
Because it's absolutely ridiculous, you know what I'm saying? And so all you have is you just gotta laugh about it, you know? Well, because of some business that they had, and I don't know the complete details about it, but that's about to come.
The marriage began on New Year's Eve in 1997, and as of March 2026, still officially exists, even though their lives appear to have moved in very different directions. It was complicated from the beginning. Divorce rumors appeared early in the timeline. By 2008, tabloids were already publishing stories claiming the marriage was falling apart. Then in 2011, another wave of speculation spread through entertainment media. In Will's 2021 memoir, he also revealed that during his first marriage to Charisse Apino, he developed feelings for his 6 Degrees of Separation co-star Stockard Channing. That moment hinted at a pattern of emotional connections forming within professional environments, something critics later pointed to when discussing how he approached relationships. And that pattern didn't simply disappear after he married Jada. It seemed to continue quietly beneath the surface for years. In 2013, speculation about an open marriage became the first major public crack in the image they had built. Jada's comments during a HuffPost Live interview, the photos of Will and Margot Robbie joking closely on the set of Focus, and the explanations that followed left many observers unconvinced. Then came the larger timeline shifts. The private separation that reportedly began in 2016 but remained hidden for 7 years. The August Alsina situation that became public in 2020. The Red Table Talk episode that turned the word entanglement into a global meme while leaving Will visibly uncomfortable on camera. Then the Oscars incident in 2022, followed by Jada's memoir in 2023. Each moment peeled back another layer of the story, and every layer suggested the same thing. This was never a typical marriage by traditional standards. So the real question was never simply whether cheating happened. The bigger mystery was what the actual rules of the relationship even were. Based on everything Will and Jada have said over the years, those rules seemed to shift depending on who was speaking and at what moment. That uncertainty kept people guessing for years.
What moment? That uncertainty kept people guessing for years. Then there's the Scientology connection, another topic that has never been fully settled. In the early 2000s, Will and Jada helped open a school that used study methods connected to L. Ron Hubbard. The school eventually closed in 2013. Records also show that in 2008, the couple donated $122,500 to organizations linked to Scientology. Former Scientologist Leah Remedy later claimed that Jada once tried to recruit her. The Smiths have repeatedly denied being members. Jada has briefly addressed the topic before, saying she explored different belief systems out of curiosity, but was never part of the organization. Even so, the conversation never fully disappeared. Online videos analyzing their possible Scientology ties continue to collect millions of views across platforms like TikTok. For many viewers, it adds another piece to the picture of a family that seemed to present one version of life publicly while living something far more complicated behind the scenes. And all of those threads eventually circle back to one person, Jaden. He didn't just grow up around a marriage facing constant public pressure. He grew up right in the middle of nearly every controversy connected to this family story. And one of the loudest accusations tied to that environment comes from his father's former best friend, who has claimed that Will often ignored normal physical boundaries with people around him. Reports about Jaden's personal struggles began grabbing headlines.
Around the same time, some online outlets circulated stories claiming Will faced criticism for an awkward onstage moment with a female performer during a live event. With so many rumors already floating around, some people treated it as just another example of what they believed was a larger pattern of physical behavior. According to those online discussions, that pattern supposedly began with Bilal's allegations, continued through stories about Jaden's childhood, and then resurfaced in different situations over the years. Supporters of Will strongly dispute that narrative, but critics online continue debating it across social platforms. Public reaction has also been sharply divided, particularly along lines involving gender and race. Several threads on X have pointed out what they describe as misogynoir in the way the Smith marriage is discussed. In many of those conversations, Jada receives the majority of the criticism, while Will's actions are examined far less closely. Jada has been labeled a narcissist by some critics. Others accuse her of humiliating or emasculating her husband. People have blamed her for the slap, the entanglement, the parenting style, and even the long separation. Meanwhile, many portray Will as the sympathetic figure, the man who stayed loyal and ended up hurt in the process. Some users on X have pushed back against that framing, arguing that it ignores the fact that Will himself has openly admitted to making serious mistakes in the past. In his memoir, Will openly talked about jealousy, emotional entanglements, and exploring non-monogamy. Those admissions alone sparked major debate about accountability inside the marriage. And when people add Bilal's accusations about Will's alleged physical conduct into that conversation, critics argue the imbalance in public scrutiny becomes even harder to explain. As of March 2026, no divorce has been officially filed. The Smiths are still legally married. Bilal Asala's lawsuit was dismissed, but he has publicly said he plans to file again, this time targeting Will directly. Jada's memoir remains the most detailed description of what life inside the marriage looked like from her perspective, but it's still only one side of the story. Will's memoir presents another version, and Jaden's perspective has appeared in smaller fragments through interviews, social media posts, and moments that the internet continues analyzing like clues. The reality is simple. Nobody outside that family knows the full truth. What the public does know comes from their books, interviews, and legal filings that became public record. When you line all of that information together, it paints a picture very different from the polished image the world saw for decades. The marriage, the parenting style, the boundaries, even the public image all appear far more complicated than people once believed. And every time someone close to the story speaks, whether it's Bilal, Jada herself, or Jaden sharing small pieces over time, the picture becomes clearer and harder to ignore. The real question isn't whether Jaden exposed Will Smith. The real question is how much more might still be waiting to surface. If you found this breakdown interesting, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it with someone who follows celebrity news, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. This story keeps evolving, and the conversation around it is far from finished.